Spy is not a sequel. It's not a remake, reboot, or adaptation of any source material that I'm aware of. Finally an original film. Yet with an imaginative title such as Spy, you'd be forgiven for not expecting that much originality. Now that I'm talking about the title, you kind of get the impression that the filmmakers have a little too much confidence in this movie. Like it's the defining film of the espionage genre or something. Perhaps the title isn't particularly inspired. That doesn't mean the film doesn't have a few things going for it though. Melissa McCarthy's Susan Cooper is an enjoyable protagonist. Now this is a very different character to her loudly confident one from Bridesmaids. It's a well-written and almost nuanced role, instead of a succession of memorable gags. Not to say she's any less funny, her humour's just more of a byproduct of reactions to events. I'm tempted to think of Spy as the American answer to this year's Kingsman, a British spy film that also worked well as a comedy of manners. As American comedy is often labelled, this film doesn't try to be subtle. A lot of the jokes are purposely crude and somewhat immature. I'm always amused at the paradox of immature content being marketed for adults. Still, do not take your children to see this film. There are also a few moments of unnecessary shock value humour, like a brief display of male nudity which I wasn't terribly impressed by, even if it was probably fake. But, for the most part, the profanity emerges as a realistic response to the context. And it's handled with sufficient wit to make it funny. Also, the elements of dark comedy are a lot of fun. However, all of this comedy wouldn't work without its top cast. Aside from McCarthy and her solid performance, we have a solid lineup of Jude Law, Jason Statham and Rose Byrne. Jude Law spins his typical web of charm, which is perhaps dampened by an American accent, but it gets the job done. Australian Rose Byrne is particularly memorable as an elegant and sophisticated snob. And then there's Jason Statham. He's probably the least subtle Englishman I can think of. Of course, he's playing his typical over-the-top macho man, except this time he's in on the joke and has an absolute ball making fun of his persona. And Miranda Hart adds that extra touch of Englishness to the mix as McCarthy's partner in crime. Now we've established that Spy works well as a comedy. How well does it fare as a spy film? Well, it has the gadgets, the cars, the ladies. The ladies are the protagonists. I wonder what Roger Moore would say to that. It also has the right amount of globe-trotting. Although there are certainly some classically exotic locations, the cinematography doesn't make a point of glamorizing them too much. With more serious spy films like Daniel Craig's Bond films, the camera is there to soak up the beauty of such locations in almost every frame. It seems to me this doesn't work as well in comedies, as it perhaps gives the impression that they're taking the film a bit too seriously. Speaking of James Bond, there is an obligatory martini reference. Although I don't know if it's shaken, it certainly causes a stir. And how can you have a good spy film without a good helping of action? A lot of the action is quite unpredictable. I thought I told you to stay out of my reviews. By unpredictable, I mean that sometimes it's slapstick, other times it's serious, and then you get sudden jabs of black humour. You never know what you're going to get. Fight sequences are well staged. You actually see the actors in the shots and the camera follows them quite smoothly. Perhaps there's nothing quite as memorable as Colin Firth taking down a pub full of thugs with an umbrella. It's still a commendable effort all the same. So what did I think? Was it amazing? Not quite, but it was still a journey worth taking. In a blockbuster season full of sequels and reboots, Paul Feig, the director of Bridesmaids, has come up with quite an original spy flick. If you're of age and can handle a bit of rudeness, then I do recommend it. If you've seen it already, what did you think? Please like and leave a comment in the comment section below.